assembly required, but listeners' discretion is advised. Sit back, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe or follow. Now, let's not keep you waiting. It's time to welcome your hosts of TNT Podcast, Tara and Tina.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another episode of TNT Podcast with your host, the beautiful Tina, and myself, Tara. You can follow us on Instagram at TNT Podcast Show. Best to just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, the show does get streamed through my my Facebook page, public. So this is episode 25. Before I introduce our next guest, though, I did want to give a couple of shout outs. The first one is to our friend Gary Rudy of dragcoach.com. If you're a beginner or you're somebody that just wants to better your skills, Gary is awesome. I've seen him in action. He offers different packages. He'll travel. Just to give you a quick example, about Gary, I was at an event here in Ontario and for some reason kept red lighting. Couldn't figure it out. So I reached out to Gary and he had a look at my time slip and he just said, I think your front tires are just inflated. So I said, oh, really? Anyways, that's what it ended up being. So he's great. I've seen him in action. Reach out to Gary at dragcoach.com. The other shout out I wanted to give is to our very own Tina. Tina got Mom Car to the 8s last weekend, her and Scott, which has been a personal goal for Tina. And I remember even talking about it last year. Super proud. American Muscle Performance in Florida, and they have a location in West Virginia, making shit happen, obviously. But there was actually a couple of articles that came out about it this week. This took place at Kentucky Dragway. Last weekend, the first one to do it. So a couple of articles came out. Our friend Patrick Rawl over on Stel Power wrote an article about it. You can check him out. We're actually going to have Patrick on next week. We're going to do back-to-back shows because I think we need to sit down and talk about this Dodge last call craziness that's going on. It's just nuts. So we're going to have Patrick on next week. The second article that came out about it is from a gentleman by the name of Derek Putman, and he writes for SICTA magazine. Great article there. You can go check it out. But we just recently kind of met Derek. He announces some of the NMCA events. And when Tina was entered down there, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago
in Orlando.
In Orlando, he was the announcer. And I tell you, it just makes for a really great experience, right? He was hilarious. And I just want to quickly show the clip where we fell in love with this guy.
Yeah, the Mom Car, the 9-second Durango coming back around left-hand side. I'll tell you what, if I was lined up with this thing and it took me to town at the top end of the racetrack, I'd just drive into the sand trap. I mean, the utter embarrassment of losing to a 9-second SUV. Joe Gomez staging up right-hand side in the big and little equipped Challenger. Both of these cars should be capable of running something in the 10s, if not single digits. Let's see how they do right here. Already, the Mom Car way out in front. Left side, 9:30 at 154 miles an hour. The best pass of the weekend for the Mom Car. 11:00.
Way in front.
He was funny.
So I've reached out to him. We're going to have Derek on the show. Really, really nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Yeah, and hilarious. I honestly think some of these announcers, it's a gift, really.
Is.
So we'll look forward to that. So let's show the pass. 8.871 at 157. The first Durango to do it. Super proud of you guys.
Thank you.
Here it is.
That's what I'm fucking talking about. Holy shit!
Anyways, awesome job. Good for you. So,
Thank you.
Let's introduce our next guest.
Yeah.
Let's not keep him waiting anymore. Everybody, please welcome Craig Thibeau of Thitek to the show. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I think you're kind of a big deal and got a bit of a following. I had some comments tonight that people were going to be tuning in. I think you're a bit of a big deal.
I don't.
You don't. Well, before we get into how you got started and all this, let's just show one of your promo clips for Thitek.
Oh, okay.
Thitek was the first to offer unique cast cylinder heads for the Gen III Hemi platform. Our commitment to quality, engineering, performance, and customer service is second to none. What are you waiting for? Your wake-up call? Get Thitek under your hood.
And let's just say they're on the Durango.
Yes, they are.
That's why I ran the 8, right, Craig?
Yeah.
All the heads. All the heads.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty awesome stuff. So, I mean, why don't you just tell us how you got started in this? Like, have you always been manufacturing cylinder heads? Like, is this something you've always done? Like, how did this all get started?
Bad decision after bad decision. I got into this, the cylinder head stuff. I was working at sales at a place out in Chicago and went to St. Louis for World Ford Challenge. That was like 03, 04-ish, maybe a little bit before that. And met up with one of my friends who was at a shop back up here in Michigan. And basically, hey, when you're in town, swing on up and kind of check out the place, and then offered me a job, and then kind of got into the cylinder head stuff from there. And then we made a LS head there, and that's how I kind of got into the casting stuff and the aggravation you go through getting the part done and to the market, which is just
like engineer, like all that engineer stuff or whatever that you have to get
done? Getting that, just getting the part done, all the hurdles and crap you go through to actually just get it done, get it final casting. And so I got broken in that way, which thank God, because I kind of knew what I'd go into down the road when I started this. So got in the heads that way, and then basically this just kind of evolved, and from a part-time side gig to shop and everything else along the way.
And how long have you been doing this?
This part, cylinder head, like with the Hemi head, since about 08, but then the casting started on that, and I think it was about 2011, which then it finally got done in 2012. So they've been out since about 2012.
Okay. And maybe take us through the process too. Like, does raw material come to you, and then you're forming it, or does it come, like that?
It comes as a casting. Actually, on the pallet there in the video, I think they're through the first stop of that, but raw casting, and then there's 5 operations to get it to a finished part, and then you get from the finished part to the porting, and then doing honing, valve job, blending, then the assembly part. It's more complicated than most people think, especially going from the raw casting to finished part, where versus like a stock head where it comes in, it's machined, where you just clean it and then port it, and basically takes about 3/4 of the work out of it at that point. But the raw casting through that machining, like I said, it's I think 5 setups. So it's kind of a process, and that's where it makes it really hard to go from just do a single part run through, where you're already set up, you're not changing tools out, you just run and go. And kind of how we do it is we'll set up and we'll just run. Basically, we'll have 100, 120 castings, run them through, each process, which it takes a long time. There's a lot more time machining in it than most people think. Just to get it from raw to where you can be able to port it is roughly about 2.5 hours ahead, 3 hours ahead. So there's a lot of machining that goes into it. And I mean, granted, there's a lot of stuff that is in the head that it's more aesthetics than it is functional. So, I mean, without doing that stuff could cut it machine time way down, but I don't know how to put it. Like when I'm selling a part, I'd like it to look good.
Yeah.
So that's where all that little extra stuff comes into play, like undercutting on the intake face, where it's above the little 8mm bolts that are in the front of the head. That really doesn't need to be machined, but it looks better when it is. And I mean, that's probably like 5 minutes of machining right there. And a couple little other detail stuff that it just takes time, but it makes it look better in the end. So it's kind of a trade-off, but also at the same point, I think it looks a lot better. And like part of it's like when someone takes it out of the box, they're really seeing what they paid for and how good it looks,
Nice
so
and shiny.
Yeah. And that's kind of a lot of that stuff where it's aesthetic. It's a pretty head, we'll call it. I mean, it's one of those things where I'd rather have it look good than kind of say cut 20 minutes of machine time out and have it as look good. Like this week I spent 3 days rerunning a part because I didn't like the finish of it, and it's totally wasteful, and no one would probably actually notice it, but I noticed it. So
yeah,
just little stuff like that eats up time. And I know I shouldn't probably do stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's the part I'm putting out.
That's
want
right.
it to look good.
And I'm sure the
You wanna be
customers
proud
happy.
of it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely.
So how long does it take from beginning
Yeah.
to the very end to
Yeah.
do a complete set of heads, do you think?
Complete set of heads, I would probably say both heads fully machined. Machining part probably 7-8 hours roughly.
Mhm.
And then there's the guide honing. Then the rough valve job, final valve job, blending is probably another hour ahead. I use the sturdy, the rough. Honing, I ream it, hone it, check size, and then gets washed. And then I rough valve job it on the sturdy, and then final valve job it on the new one. And then hand blend it, and then mill it, wash it. And then assembly. Assembly doesn't really take that long, probably anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes ahead. No, it's that. You do 2 at a time. And once you get going, you kind of fly through it. But yeah, it takes a lot longer than most people realize to do a lot of the stuff. And then, like, if say the guides are big or there's something goofy going on, you knock out guides, you replace the guides. Just everything kind of, it can be a lot longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, it can set you back.
Yeah, I mean, I ran into a problem. It was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Couldn't figure out what's going on. Guide clearance was telling us we were 2.5 thou, couldn't get a valve through. Ended up being the driver that we installed the guides with. I bought new reamers, new drills, new mandrels, just everything fights you. And then you're like, okay, well, all right, all these guides got to come out. So there's, 16 guides a set. They all come out, put new guides in, rehone everything, redo everything. And it's just stuff like that no one knows happens. It just does.
Right. Behind the scenes.
Yeah, like rerunning chambers because the one cutter had a chip in it. Just little stuff that, eats up time. And want it to look good, want it to be nice, want it to be right when it leaves.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, one thing that's going on with a lot of manufacturers, suppliers, whatever, is huge supply chain issue is still going on. How is that affecting you now?
Oh, that's still a huge pain in the ass. Everything from castings to parts. Like, how would I put it? Castings, I finally got castings that were a PO from early last year.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of been like that. It's been, quoted, say, 8 to 10 weeks. And you end up past 6 months on that same order, calling, emailing, not being a pain in the ass, but not being a pain in the ass, pretty much. And it just, they don't have workers, or, their aluminum, supply came in short. That was the big thing through COVID, where basically couldn't get workers, or workers would show up and then quit. And the foundry I deal with, they went from, I think it was 55 people down to 15.
Oh, wow.
And then when I go out to make some custom heads, there's normally big, it's a big foundry. And I would be in a section filing cores, and there'd be nobody around. I'd be the only person in that section of the building, which it's like, wow, this is the first time I've ever seen this here. So it is. That was rough. And then, still dealing with it now with getting parts, springs where randomly you can't get them. Valves will, like, I had an order, they come out of Argentina, which there's basically Argentina, I think China and India make valves. And I think the order was put in or due in last March, and I finally got that stuff in, it's like August, September. So it just random weird stuff, like valve guides, which normally order a couple hundred at a time, knock them in, ready to go. Well, can't get material. And then even the place that I deal with, I'm like, I'm going to find material. And they're like, good luck. So I've called tons of places and no one had material. So what do? You're kind of, you get stuck, and then you start looking at other materials, which I
probably don't like to really do, right? Because you like to use what you've been using.
Yeah, and the material I use, it's called the Ampol equivalent, which is a harder bronze material, and it's just weird how it's available then not available, and the price is pretty much whatever they have it, and this is what we want now, regardless of what your PO is.
True.
So it's just weird stuff that you can get stuff and then all of a sudden it dries up.
So I can't imagine, like, how frustrating that is too for customers, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you want to finish their product, get on to the next project, and get the shit out the door. So that's got to be tough dealing with customers too, right?
Yeah, some customers understand, some customers don't. It's a mixed bag on that. And and I feel for the guys that, they got the car tore apart or the car sitting in the middle of the shop.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you don't want this.
yeah, I mean, I'm glad I do. Cylinder heads are small, so it's like when I have shelves I can put them on, but when shops got cars sitting in the, it makes you feel bad in that for that, or the guy that's at home and, cars tore apart and they're waiting on stuff. And it's frustrating. I understand their frustration. I have frustration because it's like, okay, I'm waiting on this, waiting on that. I had a set of titanium valves for a guy. They were ordered in December. They were supposed to be here end of January. They showed up last Friday. And it's just, that's how it is,
Yeah, can't control it.
Yeah. And, you can scream and yell at everybody and it's not going to get you anywhere.
No.
Basically all it could do is pretty much get your order canceled. I mean, that's
right. Yeah. I mean, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Right? You can't control it, right? This is a really good question because you are really good at what you do. So what makes Thitek the best?
I mean, over like a factory casting, just now the Hellcat and the big gas heads they're an A356 material. Same, we'll call it line of material, but the additives in the material are different. My head's thicker, where some of the stuff I've seen with Hellcat where it'll have head gasket issues at a certain pound, boost level or RPM, where like a lot of the stuff in my head, I came from the LS market. So, all the valve train stuff is all LS based. So that was one of the things where like the factory heads, you can get a dual on them. It's kind of a pain. You got to custom retainers, a lot of machining, where mine, I can do a dual, a beehive, different valve options, can change seat material. And then this is where it gets me in the trouble, but is nice for engine builders, the end user, where I have 3 different chambers, a 70, 72, 76, the 72 and the 76. The 76 is more of just a boost chamber. 72 kind of fits a little bit of everything. And the 70, depending on the piston, I have guys that run it boosted, NA, nitrous cars. And then, so there's 3 chambers there. And then I have 3 different exhaust ports that are available. Then 5 different intake ports. And then there's 4 different spring options. So you can kind of tailor it to what you want and how you want to build it. Where, basically with the stock stuff, you're kind of limited to what you can do. How, on the porting side, how big you can make things. And then once you start getting a port real big in the factory stuff, it kind of starts losing rigidity pretty much. And then also, all the chambers are CNC'd, so everything's the same. Where like the factory stuff, the Apaches, the 6.4 Apache, when I CC'd a couple of those before, they were anywhere from, I think it was 73 to 76. Which, I mean, the factory stuff, I don't think that little bit makes that big of a difference because all those cars make about the same power from the factory. So, I think there's a leeway built in it. But just, you get consistency out of everything. And I've proven to make more power than the factory ported stuff. NA or, mostly supercharged the centrifugal or turbo stuff. The Hellcat style blowers, those are a little bit more tricky where you don't see the gains aren't as big as if you had like a Pro Charger or Vortec on it. But it's just the design of that blower.
Right. Okay. Now, this looks like some different versions of what you offer, because you just mentioned earlier the beehive. So
Yeah. So like on the top left, that's the porter's version where you can get it where there's no CNC chamber, no CNC ports. That's how you'd get it. Which a few of the guys get those, and like I'll rough out the chambers, rough out the ports small, just so there's not too, as much material there. But I do have some of the guys that have bought those just to make their own deal and how they want to do it. Like the head on the right, top right, that's the standard chamber, which normal, unless you ordered like the 72 or the 76, that's a normal chamber you get. And then my eyesight's bad. I don't really want to get too close to the, but
it's okay.
so center left is the beehive. And then center right is the dual, both clear stock rockers. The standard springs are the beehives of PSI 1511. The standard duals of 1512 PSI. Had real good luck with those. Never really. I think I've broken 3 beehives in over 20 years. So
oh wow.
the PSI stuff holds up really well. So that's kind of why I've never really. I try not to stray away from it. Unless we get into the dual stuff, that's kind of a little bit different story. But then on the bottom left, that's the Jessel race head for the Jessel rocker system.
Oh, okay.
Where everything gets machined out. You have to run their rocker system with their valve cover spacer, solid roller stuff. Basically a different animal from the stock configuration.
Oh, okay. Is there one cylinder head that's more common than
the dual is more common than the beehive stuff. Because a lot of the guys I sell to, they're boosted or they're aggressive camshafts where the dual gives the added safety. It does have a little bit more valve train weight, but you can kind of overcome that with a little bit more pressure. But if you were ever to break a spring, the dual will hold up. You at least have another spring there to hold the valve up. Which, I mean, the PSI stuff's been pretty rock solid. So the breaking of the beehive, I'm not really too worried about it. So that's kind of why I offer a beehive still, where I've had other brands beehive break on startup, on running. I mean, just kind of a grab bag, and it from my outlook at it is it's just a little bit extra safety. I think it adds $200 or $250 to the price to run the dual over the beehive.
Yeah, it's really not crazy.
Yeah.
So you also port stock heads and stuff, right? You make your own, you port heads, and you also repair, correct?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And for the people out there that do not know what porting heads are or the benefits.
Hey, what the hell is that?
Okay, so for Tara, who doesn't know what porting heads is, can you explain it?
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Basically increasing airflow. Unless you epoxy stuff or weld stuff up, increase the port volume, increase the airflow, try to get more power out of it. But much like a lot of the newer style motors, like the Hemi, the LS, the Coyote, you really need to do a camshaft with a ported head. It's kind of a package at this point, where the factory heads untouched are really good. I mean, it's honestly, it's a really good cylinder head for a production standpoint. Like the factory Hellcat head flows like 335, Apache Hellcat big ass, like 335, 330, 335, where back, the early stages of the 03, 08, 57, that thing flowed like 260. I mean, so I mean, to give you a comparison of where how good that head is, and I mean, where I mean, factory LS head is like the cathedral port stuff is 260, 280. Small block Ford, which has always been just, I mean, doesn't, if you, on a flow bench, it doesn't flow well, but I mean, a decent set of ported small block Ford heads is 320 CFM until you start getting in the race stuff where then it starts, over 400. But I mean, it's the factory heads are really good. So it's you get, how would I put it? You can make improvements, but you're already starting off at a good base. So the gains are kind of how would I put it? You'll see a lot of gain, but sometimes you won't see it, like on a running car, from the camshaft only to ported head. I've seen 40, 50 horsepower,
Yeah, I was going to ask what kind of type of gain that you get.
And that's kind of an all over thing. Because it really depends. Like if you have a big camshaft that'll turn a lot of RPM, or, something that's a little mild, you'll get, I would say the range on like 50 to 60 roughly, pick up at the wheels. A lot of if you were to go from stock cam, stock heads to ported heads, camshaft, you could see 100, 120 realistically. But I mean, that's also, if it's the combinations, works well together.
Right. Okay. You mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. We have this.
Oh, yeah.
That's who came up with the name Bear Heads?
Why does Jerome keep asking questions?
He's really good with questions.
He's awesome.
I know.
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Actually, the name Bear. So my oldest, my first child, Lou, his nickname was Lou Bear, and everyone's like, kind of, what are you gonna name it? What are you gonna name it? And like, the factory stuff's the Eagle, the Apache, so it kind of fits in.
Yes, it does. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cute.
Well, I'm glad he asked that question.
Yeah. You mentioned a flow bench earlier. So is that part of the testing process at the end?
Yeah, I do that here and there. I have a Superflow 1020. And if I'm changing something or trying to find, I'm going to change this to see what this does or that, or, verify that the numbers are what they are, which I'm not a big flow bench guy. I mean, it plays a part, but I don't base everything off the flow bench. My opinion, there's a lot more that goes on than what flow numbers are. And that's where I get into it with some people where they, the flow numbers a lot are a selling tool. I mean, it's kind of like a dyno number. It gives you a reference of what it'll do, but it doesn't really tell the full story. And that's where it's hard to tell, like, how would I put it? It's hard for me to say, yeah, it flows this, but where you have, say, a factory head in my head, where like the big valve Hellcat stuff is similar to what like my 2165 is, but my 2165 generally makes more power and with similar flow numbers. So, where does that come into play? It's like, well, the flow bench is a tool, and you normally have to build a big baseline off of stuff to basically compile a lot of data to know what you're kind of looking at. And that's where, like, a lot of everyone publishes flow numbers, and it kind of drives me crazy because, this place says this flows X, but then you put it on your bench, it flows this. Well, whose bench is right? Whose bench is wrong? They're comparing two different things until you compare it on your bench, where then you have your own data where you can compare it. Because the way I kind of look at it is, even if the tool you're using is wrong, but you're still comparing everything against that, you still have your baseline of, this is my data that I'm collecting, and this is kind of how I look at things, where the flow bench, I don't think tells the full number of what it'll actually make. And I know that drives a lot of people crazy, because, you
want the
say,
number.
yeah. And I don't really believe in that the flow bench will tell you everything you need to know. And when I do a lot of testing and stuff, and I'll change valves, change ports a little bit, and I'll use a lot of how it sounds versus some other stuff, where if something sounds horrible, it generally runs horrible.
Is this more of a close up of the?
Yeah, that's the dual spring with the stock rocker on it. Basically showing that it clears the stock rocker arm.
What can cause damage to a cylinder head?
A piston hitting it, big blow-ups, something going through the intake, fire, water damage. The nice thing with the aluminum head is they're repairable. I mean, a little bit of weld here and there, and you can fix basically anything. Where like a cast iron, you can still, but there's a lot more to it, and normally a specialized welder to fix the cast iron or weld it.
I was going to ask what was better, cast iron or aluminum?
I mean, I like aluminum. It's lighter.
Right.
Cast iron's pretty heavy and sucks to move around. That's why I try not to actually do any of it anymore. But they both have their, depending what you're doing, cast iron stuff, if you're in a class, or a lot of, I know I think it's the truck tractor pull guys, they love the cast iron stuff. Drag race stuff is generally aluminum. Lighter, better heat dissipation, which then you get into some coatings that reverse that and try to keep the heat in. But generally the aluminum, I prefer aluminum just because it's lighter.
Right.
Right.
But just going to show this here as well. I know you mentioned earlier some of these pictures are older pictures.
Yeah, like that one on the top is that's a stock ported head, but that's got the taper quench added to it.
Oh, okay. And it's not just Dodge that you work on either, is it?
No, I do some LS, small block Ford. Is pretty much my kind of where I like to stay. I got some guys that want me to do some big block Chevy stuff, some of the newer LT stuff, which is the new GM motor. But that's about as far as I stray. I got a guy, I port some his Harley stuff for him. So
nice.
it's a little bit of everything.
So how many sets of heads do you make a year, you think, estimated?
It varies. Off of my casting, the number's actually pretty low comparatively what I know of some of the LS guys make. But I would say anywhere from as low as 50 sets a year to as high as about 125 sets, which, I mean, basically the past couple of years have been just a crapshoot with getting them. But I think the most I did in a year was probably around 150, which isn't a lot, but it is. Where
it depends on supply too, I guess, right?
Yeah, and that's been a lot of the holdup where you get into, I mean, just the whole COVID thing just killed everybody, but
yeah,
boundaries get slammed. When OEMs start ramping up and other shops are doing well, it puts everyone behind. So you're at the mercy of them, and then when everything starts coming in, is it early? Is it late? It just becomes a crapshoot.
Right. And are you doing all this on your own? Is this a one-man show?
Currently right now, yeah. I got another guy that I used to work with that he's going to come help me out. The other guy that was working for me, he left, went to another shop a couple of weeks ago. But you just got to get through.
Yep.
It adds a little bit of stress, but
Just have to pace yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And what was it, 2 weeks ago? That's why I didn't really go to Orlando. I fell off a machine working on it, and
Oh no.
I pulled a Humpty Dumpty, and
I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but it is, because my buddy Brian, he's like, "Did you check your cameras?" And it didn't even think on me to check the cameras to see if it caught me falling. So then by the time I got to it, it already had erased it. And I'm like, that would have been really nice, because all I remember, I was on top of the machine, and then I was on the floor rolling off uncomfortably off the side of the bench. And I'm like, it'd at least been nice to know what I hit and how I hit. But yeah, I'm kind of recovering from that still. But I didn't go to Florida because kind of a little messed up from that.
Oh dear.
Are you okay though? I mean, we're laughing, but are you?
I know.
Okay?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably back to about 90%. It was one of those where I think I had a mild concussion from it.
Oh my goodness.
Because I hit basically the back of my neck on the bench, on the bottom of the bench, on the legs. And so headaches, and the first night I was up throwing up, and then
oh my gosh. Did you go to the doctor?
No.
Genius.
Why?
Oh, I don't know.
They're gonna say you fell down and hit your head. Yeah.
Somebody waking you up like every hour? Are you supposed to like wake somebody up and
that's
make sure you don't slip into a coma?
That'd probably be okay.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I didn't go to Florida from that. And
yeah, that's a good reason not to go, probably.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you're all right.
Yeah, hopefully you get back to 100% quickly.
I'm about 90% now.
Oh, geez.
It's rough, especially we're getting older. It's like we fall and it takes us out forever.
It takes longer to get better, too, right?
I don't like to admit getting older. I don't.
No, I know. Mm-hmm. So, to back up your product, like, do you offer a warranty, anything like that? Like, how does that work when it leaves the door?
That's where it gets into being tricky. Like, if there's an issue with the head, I'll take care of it.
Right.
I claim there's no warranty, but like, if there's an issue, I'll take care of it. I'm understanding, like, hey, something happened that shouldn't have. I understand it. Like, I'm not going to totally just, screw someone over and be like, oh, nope, no warranty. But I claim no warranty because you never can tell what happens at the end user. Like, I've had heads back where, I had this issue or this, I tried to have it fixed and they send it back and it's like, what the hell went on here? Someone that shouldn't have done something. And, I want you to take care of it. It's like, well, if you'd have sent it back and I could have seen what was actually wrong, it would have helped you out. But you tried to have it fixed and it's worse than, it's worse than what a repair would have been. That's where it kind of gets into like, no, I got to charge you because I can't tell what was there or what was done.
Right. Yeah. And you'd want to know too, right? It's your product. So you think, you'd be interested to know what the heck, happened. Right. So,
I'll stand behind the product, especially if there's an issue with it that I didn't catch or someone didn't catch. And then there's an issue that should never have been there. So, I feel bad for people that, every once in a while something gets out that shouldn't have. And,
Right.
you got to take care of the people. I mean, they bought
Right.
the product, you got to stand behind it,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's like you get the guys who I've had guys scream and yell at me, say turbo application, your exhaust valve stretched. Well, you put a shit ton of heat in it and stuff,
Yeah.
I'll get where chambers are melted and stuff like that. And your valves failed. Well, aluminum doesn't melt itself. And okay, the valve stretched or, but you torched, literally you melted aluminum in the chamber. Something else going on. This
Right.
was what happened from the result of something else.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Craig, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and taking the time and coming on the show. And
Even though you really didn't want to, so thank you.
Yeah,
for doing it.
you did amazing.
Yeah.
I don't like to do public speaking.
Yeah, nobody does, buddy. This was her idea, by the way. So.
Was not
Professional.
Oh, to get Craig on, yes. Yes.
Oh, shit, we're nowhere near professional. But we have fun.
You're a lot better than I am at this.
Oh, you did.
Great.
You're awesome. You did fantastic. And hopefully, you'll come back again.
Yes, he will be. I will have Craig available for autographs after the show.
After the show. Well, you're kind of a big deal.
Jerome gets something special, and it isn't an autograph.
Again?
Are you going to be in Rockingham
Yes.
in May?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll see you there, sir.
No, you won't. They won't allow you across the border.
They're letting us out now.
I will not
Letting
see
us
you
out of the
there.
zoo.
We will.
Thanks, Del.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Del.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sir. Take care.
All right, you too.
Good night.
Good night. Well, thanks for everybody that tuned in tonight. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week with Patrick Rawl. And I thought I would just leave with another little clip from our friend Derek Putnam with Mom Car.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Looks can be deceiving on this one. Yeah, that's what the license plate says on the 2021 Durango over here on the right-hand side. But as I said, looks can be deceiving here for Tina Bogus. This is a 9-second hot rod. You wouldn't look at it and think that, but a 9:79 is what Tina ran on her last pass. Let's see how she does right here. Ripley, West Virginia, Durango digging another 979 at 139 miles an hour for the 2-ton behemoth.